Hello, fellow page chewers, and welcome back. We are here today to discuss The Crossing. It's the second book in the Border Trilogy. And to do that is my friend Carl D. Albert, the author of Truth of Crowns.
Hey, thanks for having me, Steve. As I was telling you before we started recording, I suspect this would be like therapy for me, as the book was so very traumatic to read.
Yes, it was. Yes, it was. And we'll get to all that in due time, I'm sure, because it's hard not to talk about it. But I think it's kind of just starting off with it being the second book. There are similarities with the first book, the way that this kind of the story is crafted. But what are your thoughts on kind of the similarities or the common themes running between both?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, I have to be honest in that I hadn't like really thought about beyond like kind of thematic similarities, the parallels between the crossing and all the pretty horses. But I definitely think they're there. I mean, these are both clearly coming of age stories. They're both journeys, adventures in the classic Western sense of it, and they both deal with kind of the violence inherent in humanity and the world, which is probably, I mean, okay, I haven't read all of Cormac McCarthy's books, but certainly that's like his go-to theme. He seems really interested in talking about the violence that human beings and the world at large are capable of, and what it means, if anything. Beyond that, I guess. Well, okay, I guess the parallels I noticed, and I think this is interesting based on where Cities of the Plain goes. By my understanding, I haven't read it, but as I understand it, our two heroes of the first two books are both in the last book, which you have read. Is that right?
Yeah.
And I did notice that it's been a minute since I've read All the Pretty Horses. What's the name of the main character in that one?
Billy? No, sorry. One
Billy
second.
is, yeah, good crossing. Yeah. It's not Jack, is it? Where am I getting Jack from? I don't know.
No.
But that guy, whatever his name is, he's got like one of the classic white guy names. I know. And
Oh, John Grady Cole.
there you go. There you go. Yeah, John Grady. He and the younger brother in the crossing seem to have some pretty distinct similarities. Both of them have this kind of tragic love story of this, kind of random Mexican girl they stumble across in their journeys. They both have this platonic relationship with another, young man. And they both, get pulled away. I mean, I guess you could say the same thing about Billy, right? Is that their lives kind of separate them, and the difference being that at least in the first book, John Grady is, he ends the book alive, not tormented to death, like Billy's younger brother, which is just the most heart-wrenching part of the book. As an older brother, that was like really hard to read. I got to be honest. Like brotherly relationships always get to me, and so I'm curious about like what parallels did you notice? What connections did you notice between the two?
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned the brother, kind of where both books end with Billy on one side and John on the other. I feel like John had a more hopeful ending, kind of
Yeah,
more kind of not so heart wrenching at the end as Billy did. But the kind of the parallels that I think run throughout the trilogy is that the passage, the time, and the differences in culture and the differences in industry and expansion. People are moving. People are adopting a different way of life, and they're almost relics in a world that is ceasing to exist. They're kind of
that's a great point.
they're not kind of they're not coming along. They're still living in this old world that people are abandoning.
That's a great point. Cormac McCarthy definitely seems to like to write. Um, what's the name that I've heard them called? Like post westerns. You
Yeah,
know, these westerns that are like take place after the like quote unquote like golden age of westerns, and about kind of that dying off of the macho cowboy culture and all of that, and the way it has to confront industry and the world wars and all of that. And it's I mean that's an undercurrent that I do find really fascinating, particularly when I think of like Billy's interactions with the soldiers as he's trying to register, to enlist, excuse me, and to go serve, and that he ultimately is unable to because of health issues. And it you think that like, oh yeah, this young man who's already been through so much and like could be potentially a great asset is yet held back. Maybe they're trying to protect him, right? But it's like he has his own little private war
yeah,
uh, in the U.S. and that ruins his life as much as any of the young guys who have to go overseas had their lives ruined.
yeah, yeah. And that's also another theme, and that wasn't really there in the first book, is the beginning of World War II and how the war effort is starting and how the government is taking over land and resources for the war effort. So that's another thing that's kind of speeding up this process of they're losing their way of life. It's disappearing very quickly, and they are. It seems like that's part of who they are. So I don't know if they know anything else or if they're willing to do anything else. But yeah, that's definitely one of the things that stuck out to me with the two books.
Yeah, no, that's a great insight. That they're like classic tragic characters in that regard. That they are just not built for the modern world. They can't really adapt. They are an older type of person, and they're both like very decent people.
Yeah,
Like that's the thing that I think is so heartbreaking about both of their stories, but especially Billy's story, um, is that they're like it's not like reading Blood Meridian where like you maybe get a little attached to like the kid here or there, but like all the characters suck and are doing horrible things, committing atrocities. But like these are like fundamentally decent people who are largely doing decent things and are just coming to get up against the absolute like cruelty and apathy of the world. Um, and I mean that brings us back to kind of one of the questions that McCarthy is asking that I mentioned earlier. Of like, what is the meaning of the violence? Like, is there any meaning, or is it just all random happenstance? I mean, I feel like that's one of the major questions of The Crossing, because Billy's life sucks so much, and of course he has to, and the narrative has to ask like, is there a purpose to all of it? Does it mean anything, or is he just suffering? Like he just has bad luck. He just happens to be living, you know, the worst life. It's terrible. Um,
yeah. I think is it just survival or is there a purpose to it? I think you can see it
right.
both ways. I mean, is it worth living in this kind of world where you're subjected to this kind of violence and uncertainty, or is it worth living? And kind of another thing they explore in the book is kind of taking every day as a new opportunity to be different, or to better yourself, or to do something, to kind of move forward and to leave the past behind, and to overcome, and to, even when you're broken and shattered, you still find a way to persevere and to find a way to make things better somehow, or at least just to bear it.
That's I think the kind of often unspoken nobility of quote unquote grimdark stories. I mean, you hear it a lot more in fantasy spaces, right? That grimdark stories are all like nihilistic, and they're just about bad things happening to good people and blah blah blah, or like everyone's terrible or things like that. But like oftentimes, I feel like they are fundamentally less nihilistic than like existentialist, in that they're like about people like carving meaning out of a meaningless universe, or suffering horribly but finding the strength to endure anyway. And win little victories, make little moments of progress. And so there is that meaning there. And personally, I find it very powerful oftentimes, when it does, like, when you're looking at these people and you're like, there's no reason to continue, like, you should stop, but they like grit their teeth and keep going anyway. Like, I love that. I think um it's an important lesson, because sometimes life feels like, like there isn't a path, and bad stuff just keeps happening, and you're like, okay, well, what do we do? Well, I guess you just keep walking, keep gritting your teeth and pushing forward and trying to make a little good where you can.
This book I felt started out a little. I feel like the first section could be a novella in itself. It felt
Yes.
almost separate than the rest of the book. It felt a little disconnected because we start off with Billy and Boyd and their parents, and they meet this Native American who is kind of around, and he kind of hints around. You're not sure whether or not he's a danger or whether or not he's just desperate and needs help. Then of course we go to the wolf, the pregnant wolf, and Billy trying to save the wolf, and that's a whole quest in itself.
Yeah. No, that I mean, you may remember me like posting updates in the early part of the book when I was reading it, that it got me so hard, so fast. I mean, I loved every aspect of that opening story. I agree with you that it definitely feels very, it's thematically connected, and like ultimately it kind of does tie into where the story goes in terms of like, this all sets up their family getting killed, their parents and everything, and there's ambiguity about whether or not was the Native American that they like kind of helped but didn't give him everything he wanted, like if he went back to his like bandit buddies and came and killed them, or if it's unconnected and it's just a random act of violence, which is something I really appreciated, because it made it internally. I was like, I want answers. I want to know, like, I want there to be another confrontation. I want them to find these people and to identify, like, was it this guy? Did he betray them? Or, was it just random people? I wanted that confrontation, that knowledge, but I do think the work is, for what it's trying to say and explore, more meaningful, and just a richer story for not explaining it. There's a lot of ambiguity in McCarthy's works, and this even more than All the Pretty Horses, I feel.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so too. And the wolf, I think
The wolf.
Yeah, I mean that was the quest he goes on to save the wolf. There's a lot of laughs in that whole that whole journey.
It's, oh my god, it's powerful stuff. I mean, and again, talk about ambiguity. Like, you always have the question of like this is a wild like animal. This is like, this thing could rip your throat out, and yet Billy seems to be making headway with it. Seems to be kind of bonding with it, and you have the part of you where you're used to seeing in these stories, like, a boy and his dog, like they're gonna bond, they're gonna make their connection, but you're never quite certain if that's actually really happened or not, or if like the wolf will turn on him at any moment. I guess kind of like the it speaks to both like the Native American guy and like all the people they stumble across on their journeys, the brothers, that they're never quite certain if they're on their side or not, and that if they do something nice, like, are they then going to turn around and like shoot them in the back? It's so good. And then that Billy going, the final scene, like the way it ends with Billy walking back in and just walking into the ring and shooting the wolf in front of everyone is just so powerful. The prose there is just, I mean, that's one of the most powerful scenes I've ever read in anything ever. So well done.
Well, reading the synopsis, I felt like the wolf would be there the whole time, so it came as a
I agree.
surprise that the
Yeah.
wolf died so quickly. And I wondered, now looking back at the book, it's the entire story. Kind of, what did the wolf represent? Something? Did the wolf? How does the wolf fit into the greater narrative, I guess?
That's a great question. I mean, this is something I've thought about a little bit. especially as I was reading the book, because like you said, it does feel so initially disconnected from everything else.
Mhm.
Um, I I don't know if this is like remotely a correct reading or not, just because the book has so much going on, but I've clearly latched on to like the question of like meaning in the world, and like, is the world cruel, is the world apathetic, like, is there a benevolent god that is like charting everyone's course and that like loves you and cares for you. you know these seem to me to be the like kind of primary questions of the story, and so maybe the wolf is kind of the stand-in for nature and the ambiguity of nature, in terms of like it's a wild animal, it could rip out Billy's throat at any time, but also, maybe he reaches some level of harmony with it, except he never quite gets to that point. You're never sure if that's actually like, again, if that's happening, if the wolf like he is domesticating it. um Certainly I think, well, then even the way it dies, right? It's like, it's just like civilization's cruelty,
Yeah.
you know the man's invented games of violence that there's no reason for.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
well, I guess the last thing I was just going to say is that, and maybe that's like, I think in a lot of McCarthy's works, that for all the horrible shit that can randomly happen to people, it's like, it's often human beings who are doing the worst things, and that it's like all that random violence. I mean, maybe that's the meaning, is that it's like the wolf is not the real threat, right? It's like not the world that's the real threat. It's like all the other human beings who have this nihilistic, vengeful. I guess vengeance is inherently not nihilistic, but the sense of like inherent violence to their
Yeah.
behavior and how they act with the world, both to nature and to other human beings, who are, of course, we are part of nature. Anyway, what are your thoughts?
No, just kind of as you mentioned that about what's the cruelty, and just there's no justification, there's no reason. It's just cruelty because of cruelty's sake. It's not. There's no purpose. It's not because they had to eat or because the wolf was a danger to them. Well, I guess the wolf was a danger, but it wasn't at the time. They didn't have to kill it. It was fine the way it was. But I think the wolf, kind of looking back now, I wonder, is the wolf kind of a representation of the world, that it can be peaceful, and it can be, just like you mentioned earlier, it can be peaceful in the right circumstance, but at any moment it could strike. Even when you
Yeah,
feel like Billy is kind of showing it that he's taking care of it, he's feeding it, he's caring for it, he's trying to take it home or take it to a place where it can live, and still at any moment the wolf could strike and kill him at any moment.
exactly. No, I think so. I think that kind of fits neatly into what a lot of the book is talking about. I mean, gosh, I'm just thinking about that first act, and the layers of what goes on there. Like, circling back to how like humans create meaningless, or I mean, perhaps there is meaning, but it's meaning that they have created, these like systems of violence, that serve no purpose. I should say, maybe is like they're purposeless other than entertainment, or to give in to like the savage, inner desire of a person or a people. And they train the dogs, right? Like, that's what does the most damage to the wolf, right? Is they sick these dogs on the wolf, and it, of course, like, feels natural because like dog fighting is a thing. We all know it happens.
Oh, yeah.
But it also works like very thematically in terms of, it's not like they're just like sending people in there with guns to like shoot the wolf. That's what Billy does. It's they're training other animals to fight it. It is this, and not to hunt, not to feed anyone, not even for like vengeance, right? It's not like this wolf did anything to them. It's just for fun. And it's just sickening.
Yeah. Yeah, that first section really surprised me how it ended. I did not expect that at all with the wolf. I thought the wolf would be a mainstay throughout the book.
I felt the same thing.
Yeah. I guess it was kind of
Really,
clever to do that, right?
Absolutely. No, I love that. I love any time I'm reading a book and we're watching a TV show or a movie or anything, and you go in and like about a third of the way through or halfway through, like there's a big turn, and it's like, oh, this is not the story you thought it was. There's actually other things going on, and often that involves a death or something, some pivot. Um, McCarthy is a master of that. Although, I all the Pretty Horses also kind of does that. Like when they go to prison,
Yeah.
like there are those kind of like he's not big into traditional structure, I guess is what I would say.
No.
He doesn't play those traditional games in a funny way actually. Like thinking about without like giving any spoilers or anything, but like Blood Meridian actually to me feels in some way the most traditional, like traditionally structured of his books that I've read. Like I feel like there's kind of you could almost put like 3 acts over it, and it's this sort of adventure, like the worst type of adventure, but like an adventure narrative, and then you get this kind of epilogue at the end, which is pretty common with those types of like epics. While these stories really turn, pivot left and right when you think they're gonna go one way, and it makes them exciting. Although I will say too that like after the wolf died, like I put the book down for a few days. Like I was like I didn't have the desire to keep reading. I knew I was going to because I was like there's like 2/3 of the book left. I got to read it, but it definitely was like I feel like we reached the end of what I bought into,
Yeah.
but there was so much more.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And of course, Billy begins his journey, and of course he finds out his parents are murdered. Um, that it. So then we start to wonder who's responsible for it and why. Like you
Yeah,
mentioned earlier, you wanted answers on who is responsible, and he loses his horses, and the whole. Of course, in the first book, there's a big emphasis on horses and their role in this lifestyle, and it continues in this book too.
absolutely. I mean, clearly this is a guy who knew horses. I don't know much about horses, so I appreciate when it feels like I'm like seeing kind of authentic behavior, authentic writing. But I don't know. We could ask Janie Wirtz. I know she knows a lot about horses,
Yeah,
and
that's
maybe
true.
could tell us if Cormac McCarthy is just making stuff up or what.
That's true.
But I love the details. I guess is what I'm getting at. A lot of my favorite writers, my favorite storytellers have these very peculiar details that really add so much color to their works, and McCarthy is no exception. The way he describes everything, the little behaviors the characters have, like just makes them feel so much more real and well-rounded.
Yeah, that's something I noticed in this book. When characters are standing around and he quickly describes them shuffling their feet or standing a certain way. But just in a few words, it can give you a really clear picture of kind of feels like it's immersive. It feels like you're there watching them because it's not usually something people describe, but he does it in a short. He doesn't spend a lot of time doing it, but it really fills in a lot of the holes visually.
Absolutely. No, his writing is very visual.
Yeah.
He's not in the show don't tell camp. He definitely leans hard into the show, and I think that lends itself to a lot of the ambiguity of what he wants. Is he doesn't tell you kind of why people are doing things. You just have to interpret it based on their actions, and sometimes you get a little insight based off of like the kind of character you're following, but there's often still a distance. I think that's probably something that some people who read his stuff, if they're not put off by all the violence, maybe struggle with. Is I do feel like you're not actively in the characters' heads, like hearing their thoughts. He keeps them like you're watching them. You're watching their behavior. You're hearing them speak. And that can, I think, particularly with a story like Blood Meridian, make them feel a little cold. Although that's like intentionally depersonalized. Like the main character is literally just called the kid through
Yeah.
the whole story, right? Um, but Billy, oh my God, I just fell in love with Billy and his brother, and like there's some hilarious dialogue. Like I feel like that's an understated thing. Like when I started reading Cormac McCarthy, I didn't think there was any humor. I did not expect there to be any jokes, any funny moments. And I am definitely someone who appreciates moments of levity, to break the tension and to humanize the characters a bit. And those two brothers have some of the funniest dialogue exchanges I've read in a book in a while, which is crazy considering what's going on all around them all the time.
Yeah, even when he's traveling with the wolf, and the comments that people make about him
Oh yeah,
carrying yeah, but a lot of the banter back and forth. Yeah, there's a lot of, you almost need levity in stories like this. You need something to break it up.
yeah. If it was just all violence and darkness all the time, it just gets to be a little much. Well, that said, Blood Meridian is fairly humorless, and I still like.
Yeah,
I know you struggled with it more than I did. I,
yeah,
I, I was like, I was in it. I don't know what it was, um, but I definitely, I think this might be my favorite of his
mm,
books. It's not one I'm going to reread that I've read so far. It's not one I'm going to reread anytime soon, but I just felt so much. Like, that's part of what
yeah.
made the ending hurt so badly was, I cared so much about Billy, and man, he just has the worst life. It's rough.
Yeah, the journey that he goes on, the church and the man whose family is killed. That section, that was tough, but it was brilliant, but it was tough to get through.
Yes. Yeah. No, when I first started, I came to that section and I literally put the book down. I was
Yeah,
like, I can't do this right now. I don't have the energy. I don't have the headspace to read this long parable told by this random old guy in a church. Like, I no, can't do it. But I came back and I did appreciate it once I like actually like sat down, and I can distinctly remember where I was and like, how I was feeling. Like, you just have to be in the right headspace. And um, that was something I wanted to bring up because that was one of the things that really stood out to me is how many, like, there were like 3 or 4 separate times in the book where Billy encounters someone who stops and the story just screeches to a halt,
yeah,
and for like 15, 20 pages this character tells a story, and it has usually virtually no plot relevance. It's all about the thematics. It's all about the philosophy of what this story is exploring. And I was wondering if you had any thoughts about that, like why McCarthy chose to write those passages, like why he chose to include it, because there's like a little bit of that in All the Pretty Horses, but not to this extent. Like, it seemed like a very intentional choice in my mind.
yeah. I kind of took it as that Billy is learning lessons from everybody. Like he's and also because everyone has a story. I think everyone has a story to tell. Some
Yeah.
much more tragic than others, as we learn in this book. But that's the way I kind of took it, as he's kind of traveling around, and in a way, it strengthens him because he hears all these stories and all this tragedy that he can in some way deal with his own.
That's a great point. I hadn't thought about it in the like. I mean, I think it maybe plays into the point of like people making meaning out of the world, because that's like all the stories are ultimately about like one particular person going through terrible things and yet finding some sense of like purpose and meaning through it all, even when it doesn't seem like they should. Um, that's a great point, and I mean, that would definitely speak to kind of the core of what the story's about and what Billy is struggling with, because it just, I mean, talking about the surprises, like at every step of the way, the book refuses to go where you expect it or want it to go.
Yeah,
Kills the wolf, in the first 100 pages. They never find their killers, their parents' killers. They never figure out if it was like they were betrayed by the Native American guy they helped early on. Um, I mean, despite all the violence in the book, there are a lot of just like fundamentally decent people who help them along the way. That was something I loved. That, like, for as
mm,
dark as this book is, there are a lot of good people who drop everything, of all types. Um, and I love that in stories that are as like unrelentingly violent. and dark as McCarthy's, seeing that the good side of what human beings are capable of just dropping everything and helping a stranger.
Yeah.
I really appreciated that.
That's also a thread in the first book, is that people just will stop and give them anything to help them. Give them food, give them shelter. Never ask for anything in return, just because they're in need, and they never
Absolutely.
ask for anything.
Absolutely. I would be very curious to see if this ever got adapted into a movie or a miniseries or something, like how they would try to handle the unyieldy structure or lack thereof of. I mean, it does have a structure. It's like split into like what, 4 acts.
Yeah.
But it's very episodic, and there's not like a clear through line other than Billy and I guess his search for meaning, for a place. Because that's the thing, like early on, right? Is like he leaves and he feels like he is changed by his adventure with the wolf, and then he feels like he has nowhere to go, and he keeps looking for somewhere to go, somewhere to belong, and he can never find it. Not even at the end of the book.
No, not even then. And all the different people he meets, and the different experiences he goes through, and they're all different. They're all unique. What was the one that stood out to you of the people that he encounters?
Oh man. Whew. I think the old guy in the church, like that first big story segment, really stood out to me. I also think the last one, though, the like traveling people that they stumble across, and that kind of, maybe because I was like expecting it to like put a bow on things and it didn't. Like it seemed to only complicate, like the story that what was he? Was he? I'm a little hazy on some of the details. Was the final guy that Billy encounters, was he a doctor, or did he just help Billy medically separately?
I think he was a doctor, right? The one he gets. I'm trying not to mix the books up because I don't want to give any spoilers for the third
Sure.
book.
Yeah.
But is this when he was? Well, go ahead, because I don't want to say too much.
They tell this guy tells the story of the planes, and the planes that like crashed down, and it's like this big story of like, was there a purpose to it? Was it an accident? That sort of thing. Was the plane even real? Did it really happen?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I forget the profession of that character, but what were your thoughts on that, about the plane and kind of its who possesses it? Because I think it does explore the idea of the cultural differences in America versus Mexico, is that we're much more materialistic as we want to possess things.
Absolutely.
And they see things as it's an object, or generally. So what were your thoughts on that? Because I was confused as to kind of what to make of that.
I also was confused.
Okay.
I think I would need to reread it to like get a really solid grasp on it. But I mean, maybe that's the point, because I feel like that story in particular was kind of about like, is it real? Like, what's even the point? What, like, it's kind of like people decide on their own stories of what really happened, what the purpose of a thing is, which in a way does, I feel, maybe put a little bow on kind of a lot of the questions of that, Billy and the story are exploring throughout. But I didn't know. I mean, I certainly don't have like an interpretation of what the real events were or anything like that. And I'm sure people who read the book more, and read deeper into it can probably, somewhere on the internet, I'm sure people have like good theories and essays even. I mean, I'm sure a bunch of people have written like college essays about this book.
Yeah, they haven't. They should. But
Absolutely.
yeah, I was confused about that, about the plane. But that's kind of what I came away with, is the cultural differences between the two countries.
That I'm glad you brought that up, because that's definitely one of the things that both in this and All the Pretty Horses that stood out to me as like one of the main thematic through lines, is the similarities and differences between the United States and Mexico, and because the characters go right back and forth. I mean,
Mhm.
that's like the crossing and the crossing, right? Is crossing the border, and you get to see very different, but also in some ways very similar, um, cultural milieus, and like the way that the people interact. I mean, our heroes like encounter good and bad people on both sides. It's definitely not, this is something I appreciate with McCarthy, is like it it is very easy for people, even when they're trying to write nuanced stories, to make individual groups of people like definitively one way or another, good or bad, or like, they kind of set, it's easy to paint like very simple pictures. And McCarthy never does that. That you always have like, I mean, like some of the low hanging fruit. Well, it could be, I mean, any of them, but certainly whether it is the Americans, the Mexicans, the Native Americans, there are people who commit atrocities. There are people who stop and drop everything and help our heroes along their journeys, and everything in between. And I appreciate that kind of, because I mean, I guess he's asking bigger questions, right? About like the nature of humanity in general, and you can't do that if you're like certain people or certain groups of people are like all this, if you paint with a really broad brush, I guess is what I'm saying. Any other thoughts about that? I don't know, like I don't, it's definitely something that stood out to me, but I feel like I don't
Yeah.
have very many comments, like anything insightful to say.
Yeah, I think it was more of just an observation, or kind of something that he was exploring with the story, because he explores that in the first book too, as you mentioned. So I think it's the possession and the kind of who possesses something and what does it mean, who does it belong to. The whole plane thing, I kind of flew over my head. I did some searching about it, and it still didn't really make a whole lot of sense to me, some of the things that I read, but I was curious kind of what the deeper meaning there is. But I think it can be interpreted a few different ways.
Absolutely, absolutely. I'm trying to like very quickly go to ChatGPT and see if I can figure out what this guy's profession was. What is the profession of the traveler?
I think he was an engineer. I forget his name.
Um, anyway, what else? Oh, I don't know what. So you asked me like who stood out. Um, okay, the mendicant gypsy traveler is how he
Hmm.
is identified. Oh, he's identified as a magician. That's
Oh,
right.
the gypsy. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, okay. What? So what about you? What particular character
I think the
or
one that stood out,
encounter stood out to you?
kind of the most, I think it was the church, was it the man in the church who
Yeah.
talked about his family being killed, and he just how to go on from there. I think that was, I think I read that section a few different times just to get through it, just to take it all in. It was pretty heavy, but that's the one that stuck out to me the most. But I think they're all a little bit different, and they all have a different meaning for Billy. They all teach him something different.
Absolutely. No, yeah. I also, yeah. I mean, if I had to point to one, I think that is also the one that stood out to me the most. It felt very biblical. Like it actually felt like a story you would read in the Bible.
Yeah.
Like it just does. Like everything, the way he talks about it, the way it plays out. At the same time, it doesn't kind of have it. It's pretty ambiguous. Excuse me, ambiguous uh, about a lot of it, or at least Billy certainly doesn't seem to be satisfied by the kind of. He struggles with it. I remember, and I do think we're invited to like kind of wrestle with the story. That even the old man like doesn't seem to, he's reluctant to give any answers. about what it all means, um, which is a common theme, I would
yeah,
say.
yeah, yeah. What does it all mean? What's the purpose? What's the meaning behind it? But never really get an answer. I think the other the other kind of you had mentioned earlier about the girl and the similarities between the girl and all the pretty horses, but of course, Boyd meets the girl. Well, they have a they develop a connection there. What were your thoughts on that kind of romance and the tragedy that we end up?
I Yeah, I pretty much the entire time didn't know how to feel about it. Like, I All the Pretty Horses is a much more kind of straightforward tragic romance, and I loved it. I mean, I found it very impactful, and I found the characters, they have their nuances and their ambiguities, but like I felt like there was much easier to kind of understand what was going on there and what was motivating them, well, as opposed to the girl and the crossing. Like, I mean, even her background, right? Like her backstory, like she's intentionally mysterious. We don't really know where she came from. Like, people have all these theories and thoughts, but we don't know because she doesn't tell anyone. Um, she does seem to really care about Boyd,
Yeah,
and so it is tragic in that regard. Like, they seem to have fallen in love with each other, but I really wasn't sure what to make of her for a lot of it, and what to make of their relationship. I feel like it would be easy to, in some ways, like almost lay the blame for Boyd's death at like not her, but at the relationship of like by sticking with her as opposed to going with his brother, like he got
yeah,
himself killed. But it's not that simple. It's like he made willful decisions to seek out violence, right? Which is what got him killed. I mean, he was the more like active, violent of the two brothers. And I guess maybe that's what stood out to me the most about it, is how it kind of illuminates how willful Boyd is and how much he seems to intentionally pull away from Billy, and to want to separate himself from Billy, as opposed to, I feel Billy, like, obviously he leaves his brother, but I feel he much more strongly wants to be around his brother and to stay with his brother.
yeah.
And he kind of leaves because he believes Boyd wants him to leave and that he doesn't have a place there.
Yeah,
But
that
I
was
don't
really
know. I mean,
sad. Yeah.
it is really sad. It's really sad. Their partying is so sad, especially knowing where it all goes.
Yeah, I
Again,
think yeah.
every step of the way, it does not go. Like, he gets Boyd's body, and then he can't even take Boyd's body all the way back because of like legal bullshit, and who owns the body. And it's just like, it's crazy, and heartbreaking.
Yeah, the Boyd and Billy being separated, I think that was upsetting because when after all they've been through, they
Yes,
get separated and Boyd goes away with the girl, and of course we know that Boyd became very angry and vengeful and wanted to take his anger out on people. So I wonder if kind of she fed into that, or she fostered those emotions, and when Billy really didn't do that. But knowing the way he died and hearing about it, and knowing where his body was, and the whole just where does Boyd's body belong, was the kind of the question that's posed to Billy when he's trying to take him.
yeah,
Is the the body doesn't belong to you. It belongs to the land. It belongs to he died where he died, and that should be where he rests. But of
right.
course, Billy has other ideas, and so that was kind of, you understand both sides of it, I guess, when you think of it certain ways.
No, there are definitely nuances. I'm thinking too of how it's interesting. I'm so glad we are having this conversation because it's giving me like new appreciation and insight into the story, because after they separate, the first thing that's when Billy goes and tries to join the army,
Right.
and it's that all of these like kids basically are going out to, a lot of them are going to die, right?
Yeah.
And it's just like Billy cannot die. Like the world conspires. And that's the question, right? Is like, is there
Yeah.
meaning behind it, or is it just happening? But Billy cannot seem to die, and yet, that should have been the sign that his brother was doomed. Other than just like the fact we weren't following his brother, but that like Billy's going, and then all these young men are enlisting, and he cannot. And I mean, there's this sense of dread, right? That a lot of them are going to die. It's like, so will Boyd,
Yeah.
getting caught. He's just another one of those young men, those boys who, gets caught in the violence, the systems of violence. And the tragic thing is that he, as he seeks it out, that Boyd does have that, like, that more savage, more bestial, I don't want to even say the wolf, because again, there's the ambiguity of the wolf, of like, what if the wolf was actually like gonna hurt Billy or not, by the end. But he's capable of more violence, I guess. And he's more instinctively violent than Billy is,
Yeah.
who is very reluctant. Oh, it's so good.
I didn't think about that Billy, that it's like Billy is he's trying to enlist, knowing what awaits him, and you can look at it as he's looking for a place to belong. He's looking for a place to kind of be a part of something, but the universe still, like you
Still
mentioned,
won't
he
let
has
him.
this heart, and for them to turn him away, I mean, what are the odds of him
Yeah.
being turned away?
And then, of course, he goes to a bar and is trying to drink, and the soldier is just looking at him and is like, "You piece of shit,
Yeah.
you lazy, feckless, cowardly piece of shit." And it kills me that he like, I get it. Like I feel like if I was in the same position, I also wouldn't be like, "I'm sorry, they won't let me. I've tried to enlist, but they won't let me." Uh, but he doesn't. He just like has his drink, acts kind of pissy, and leaves. Or actually, like tries to start a fight, doesn't he? Actually. Um, oh, so good.
Yeah.
I'm like, what happens in like the middle of the book? I'm a little hazy on that particularly. There's a lot in like the first third and the last third. But after he reunites with Boyd, they then cross again. What do they do when they get into Mexico?
They look for the horse traders who they think,
Right.
they look for them.
Oh, they
They
find
try
the
to
girl.
locate. They find the
Right.
girl. Um, and then of course, after the girl appears, they lose. They get separated. But I think the kind of the middle is him meeting different people and trying to locate who killed his parent. Well, they find their parents
Right.
first. They find their bodies. They realize that
That's
someone
right.
stole their horses, and they try to relocate. They try to locate the horses and who took them.
That's what it is. They're tracking the horses and how, the people who stole and then traded the horses. Wow. Yeah. Did you? So I have to confess that I was really dumb, and when I first finished the book, I did not catch that the dog was their dog.
Yeah.
Like that went way over my head, and I had to see it like pointed out. I forget it was on this forum or like elsewhere, that I was like, oh my god, that was their dog. That's horrible. That makes it even worse.
Yeah.
Did you catch that?
Yeah, that was terrible. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, a brutal last scene. I mean, they just really like tonally
Oh, the
highlights
dog at the
everything.
end.
Yeah. Yes.
Oh, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, I didn't notice. I was reading that it's like it is their dog, and he like finally recognizes it, and that's like the moment at the end, which is the thing I didn't catch. Like I got he like had an emotional shift with the dog, and suddenly he like wanted the dog and was sad when he scared the dog off. But I forget where I was reading that, but someone was saying that it's actually like there's some like some physical characteristic. It's like it is the dog. The dog's been through hell, but it is the same dog. And there's like something that potentially hints at that or gives it away. But I did not pick up on that at all. I mean, I got the like parallels of like, you know, with the wolf and then the dog that follows them everywhere and everything, but it does feel like Billy is almost sort of is like that dog, you know? Like
Yeah.
he's very loyal, he's very sweet, but like when you kick him away and tell him to like get, you know, he does. Um, ugh, it's all so sad.
Yeah. The so I think, starting off the book with the wolf, and he goes through all that trouble of saving it, of taking it back to where it could live, and of setting it free. And at the end, well, also there's the wolf, there's the horse that gets injured during the
That's right.
confrontation with the bandits. He tries to save, and then the gypsies. I think the gypsies help him with the horse, so he desperately tries to save the horse's life. And of course, at the end, just the kind of the different, kind of starting off with the wolf, going through all the hassle, risking his own life to save the wolf, and at the end, he shoos the dog away, and
Yeah.
the dog just kind of howling and crying. Wow, that was something that was rough.
When I tell you finishing that book ruined my night, I was in such a bad mood. I was so upset. I think I went straight to the internet to be like, someone give me some silver lining. Someone tell me there's something here. It is just bleak and sad, and like in the best, most powerful, like truly bleak stories, like you just care so much. Like it's not like you're just like, oh, there's no, whatever, everyone sucks. Uh, you want so much better for Billy, but everywhere he goes, the world just takes a dump on him.
Yeah, I think Billy just could not catch a break, and
No.
the evolution, or kind of the descent, I guess, into this kind of, he's a completely different person, and I think that's the difference between John Grady Cole in the first book and Billy in the second, is that John still seemed optimistic. He
Yeah.
felt like he had this kind of this feat, the kind of like this motivation to live the life he wanted, and he's going to travel and live off the land and find a place that he belongs. And I think Billy has a different outlook by the end of this book, and you wonder,
Absolutely.
where he goes from here.
I mean, they do feel almost like opposites. I mean, it's very similar in that both of the endings are open ended,
Yeah,
and they're both kind of on their own, and they're gonna like have to figure things out. But their point of views are completely different, and it gives you like I honestly feel like All the Pretty Horses ends pretty optimistically. Like it's a relatively happy ending. Like you're sad things have happened, but you don't like finish the book feeling like really depressed, as opposed to The Crossing, where it's brutal.
yeah,
And I know what happens, and I am curious, and I will read this book at some point. Cities on the Plain, is that right?
yeah.
I don't have it in me right now. Don't have the emotional bandwidth.
It yeah, well, I think the series maintains its impact, I'll just say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm very curious to see how they, I don't know how much, like knowing Cormac McCarthy, they're like going to barely be in the book together, I mean, or something, but I am very curious to see what their interactions are like. It's an interesting conceit to have these two characters who have their own books all about them, and then to have them cross paths in the third.
Yeah. I won't say anything to not spoil anything, but yeah, it was pretty. I think well, I liked it. I think it was probably the weakest of the trilogy, but it's a
Interesting.
little different. It's it's more of a structured story than the first two.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
but still good, of course. And of course the end is heartbreaking, but in a different way. So,
What? So You're now reading Outer Dark, is that right? Or you're about to? You're going to?
Yeah,
That's the next McCarthy?
yeah, it's the
Okay.
next one. And I do plan to reread Blood Meridian
Would that be your third time?
second time. Yeah.
Oh, for some reason I thought. Okay. Okay.
I think I
Cool.
tried before and I didn't make it very far, but just read it the
That's fair.
front of beginning to end once. Was it a year or two
Okay.
ago with you guys? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. That's definitely a book that it helps to have a group around you where you're not just like, on your own. Like you have someone you can talk to and be
Yeah.
like, what the hell is going on?
That's a rough one. Yeah. But I think now that I've read more McCarthy, I think I'll have a different outlook on it because I think he's kind of an acquired taste, and
Oh, for sure.
takes a little while to kind of get into the rhythm of his prose.
I was gonna say that exact same thing. Is I've learned now that like when I start reading a McCarthy book, it's like pulling teeth. But by about like 30 pages in, once you kind of get used to the rhythm of the prose, like how it flows, it does flow, and you like actually you start like going through it, much more smoothly. It's not, you just get locked in, and it is a testament to his writing that he manages to make that work, despite how non-traditional his style is. I mean, I hate that he doesn't use dialogue tags, quotation marks. I don't understand it, but you know what? He makes it work.
Yeah, and speaking of the prose, the landscapes.
Oh, the way he describes nature is it's just fantastic. I mean, he's easily among my favorite writers in that regard. His prose when he like really gets into just describing the landscapes, the desert, the mountains, everything. It's next level.
Yeah, I think the characters' interactions with the environment and with nature and with the desert specifically is there's just something I don't know how he does it, but it's like a different character in itself.
Absolutely. Oh yeah, no, the environment is always like a major character, at least in all of his books that I've read. I've heard Outer Dark is different, so I'm curious.
Hmm.
Maybe I'll join you for that. I don't know.
Yeah,
I think it deals with like physics. Is that the one of his that deals with physics?
I'm not even sure.
Okay.
I haven't started yet.
There's one of
I
him
try to
that like.
avoid synopsis.
Okay. Okay. I don't know very much. I just know that one of his books, and it's maybe not that one. Like he was apparently like a physicist, or he like was in a physics society or something.
Hmm.
Um, that he got like inducted to in the second half of his life, and one of his books takes like inspiration from that. But I'm curious. While we're talking about the man, did you read that article about his like off and on again like girlfriend
Yeah, I
who
saw a
like
little
met
bit
when
about
she was a
that.
teen?
Yeah,
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 very interesting story. Uh, Definitely colors some of his stories in a different light, but
yeah.
it's messy, in the way that life often is messy.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. The I've after I finished this book, I went to YouTube to watch a few different reviews on the story, and there was a few reviews I found that labeled this as like dude bro lit, like it was this machismo driven. But I don't think. I mean, the romance was I think well done. It wasn't kind of have didn't have the there's romance that you can tell it's written by men. That's
Yes. Right.
it's
Right. Right.
really
Yeah.
there's some really bad romance out there written by men, especially in fantasy and
Yeah.
science fiction. But I didn't feel like that. I didn't feel like this had this machismo kind of edge to it at all. I didn't catch that.
Yeah. I agree. I mean, I think what I could identify is I do feel like his writing is very masculine in that he writes a lot about men, and women are not often at the forefront of his stories. They're often in the background, or there's But that said, he is capable of writing really great female characters. I mean, I think of all the pretty horses, both the girl whose name I can't remember, but her grandma.
Yeah,
I remember like one of my all-time like favorite characters. She's phenomenal. So it's not as if like he is, it's like all sexism all the time. Yeah, like machismo. big buff dudes being like badasses. Like his stories are very intimate and emotional, and I guess they explore things that you would like expect to see in masculine stories, like violence and war and blood and guts and all that shit. But I don't. I'm with you. I mean, I think that's such a like lazy critique of his writing. Like if you don't like it, like that I
Yeah,
totally get it. It's like
yeah,
R. Scott Baker, where it's like, I it is not for everyone. It's just not gonna be. And I could definitely see, particularly some women maybe struggling with how masculine the stories are, or in terms of how they're focused. But it's not. That is such a like way of simplifying and like flattening his writing that it's lazy. It's a lazy critique.
yeah. I didn't get that at all. And I did read that he avoided writing women because he didn't want to. He didn't understand that perspective. So I think that's what I read, that he avoided writing women into the story, but instead kind of, you know, the romance was more focused on the men. But like you said, it's messy. It's not perfect. It's tragic in ways that just kind of life. And the
Yeah.
the the violence against women. There's a lot of violence against men, but the violence
Yeah.
against women, I felt like that's kind of the life in the old west, at least how it's portrayed. Is It was a dangerous place.
It. I definitely don't feel that. Yeah, women are uniquely targeted in his stories. Like, not even with sexual violence. Like, there maybe is slightly more, but like, I I actually don't feel like rape is like a major touch point in a lot of his stories. Like he doesn't really explore. It's not like Baker that way,
Yeah,
where that's like one of the major themes. Like he's much more concerned with the like murder violence. I'm with you there. I again, I don't blame someone if they don't like his stuff, but like you don't have to you know make up reasons to not like it. Like you can just not like it. It just rubs you the wrong way or whatever.
yeah. I can definitely understand. Can definitely understand people not liking it. It's not for everyone. It's like you mentioned. It's kind of like Baker. It's not everyone can. First, the prose is very different. It takes a while to get
Yeah.
used to it. It can be a challenge to adapt to it. But also, the story is not every. It's not for everyone. And if you don't like it, that's fine. But to label it kind of this macho, oh, I read McCarthy, so I'm a tough guy. I don't get that. I don't get that
No.
vibe at all.
Yeah. I mean, I could see maybe some of those like types of people enjoying his stories, but I don't feel like the works. I mean, it's like Fight Club, where you think of like that's not like the guys who like read or more often watch Fight Club and think like let's form a fight club. Like that's first of all not nearly the majority of people. Second of all is like they're just like media illiterate. Like
Yeah,
that's the opposite of the
yeah,
point of the story, right? And that's like Cormac McCarthy's whole. Like it's not his stories are like if you had to say like there's one universal theme, it's that this violence is bad, and it ruins lives.
yeah.
It is senseless, it is cruel. There's no real purpose to it. It's not noble. It's ugly, and it breaks both the people who commit it and the people who have it committed upon them. And that's not very dude bro. I don't know.
No, not at all. I don't get it either. But I was surprised to see that. But everyone's
People
different. So
people are always looking for a reason to justify their dislike of something. Like I've noticed that in book communities and movie like film communities that something can't just be not for them. It has to be morally wrong. And I don't know if this was a big thing before the internet or not, but it definitely is a thing with the internet that the internet has exacerbated. Where it's like, yeah, you have to find some moral outrage, and I don't think this is even like a political thing. Like it becomes political for people, but I don't think it's like a particular strain of politics. Like people just, I don't know. It's like an immaturity thing. You know, like if I don't like a book, I'm not going to be like this book is actually bad because it's horrible and it's ruining lives and making you a terrible person if you read it, and if you like it you're a terrible person, and it's just silly.
Yeah, I don't get it either. But great book though. I think it's my favorite of the
Yeah.
trilogy.
That's cool to hear. I think I liked it more than all the pretty horses. Do you have so what else have you read? You read The Road? Is that
The
right?
Road, yeah, we read The Road. We had Blood Meridian, the Border Trilogy, and what else did I read? I think that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're a little ahead of me. Yeah, I got some more. Got some more reading to do. But what were there any in the reviews? I mean, I guess for me and for anyone listening who's curious to see like other discussions, were there any particular, YouTube videos or whatever you found that you thought were interesting?
There was a couple, I forget the names of the creators, but there was a few that kind of had the same thoughts we did about kind of just life and faith and kind of the journey that we all go through and perseverance. But yeah, there's a few that were just really glowing reviews about it, which I
Nice.
appreciated. But it seems like
Yeah.
it seems like it's a love or hate. It seems like McCarthy in general is a love or hate thing.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
Very divisive. I mean, I have family members who they cannot read his stuff. Like it's too much. They do not enjoy it on every level. And I'll admit, like when I first, oh, I mean years ago, when I was thinking about whether or not I should read him, and I saw his name, like I was like, just his writing style alone, I was like, I can't do it.
yeah,
Like I no quotation marks, not for me.
yeah.
But I gotta give credit to, I think, I want to say who were the YouTubers I saw? Did you review any of his books a couple years ago? Jimmy Nuts was one of them. But I just saw enough like enthusiasm that I was like, okay, like I'll give this a shot. Like I see a lot of people whose taste I respect talking about it, and I'm glad I did because
Yeah.
he's definitely one of my like top tier authors. Even though I cannot read his books like back to back, I'm shocked that you just powered through the trilogy. I could not do it.
Yeah, I was hooked. Yeah, I can't remember the YouTubers' names. That I think it was more just people on the forum, like Chris and Varsha, that were kind of
Nice,
wanting to read The Road, and then we read Blood Meridian. So they kind of pushed me into it, uh, just to give it a try.
good.
Yeah,
I'm glad. Said Varsha and Chris couldn't join us for this, but I know
yeah,
we all have 1,000 read-alongs going on, and
yeah. They have a lot
it's too
going on,
much.
so yeah, yeah, they have a lot going on. But I'm sure they'll come around at some point.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah,
They got to have their heart broken at some point.
yeah, they kind of stay away. Yeah. Any other thoughts on The Crossing?
Oh, I guess just in conclusion, I think it also is. It's maybe my favorite McCarthy book.
Yeah,
I just found it so impactful, and Billy is easily my favorite character of his that I've read.
yeah,
I mean, I love Billy. Like Billy's in some of my all-time favorite characters now. Um, and it's not just because his life sucks. Like that's a part of it. Is like it's not often you read a character whose life is just like one tragedy after another. But he's like such a genuinely interesting and kind person also.
yeah,
Um, and he has this kind of he's both like stoic and vulnerable, and it's a really interesting combination. Um, like I really like John Grady Cole, but Billy to me is like another level of just like you just like fall in love with him, and all he goes through and all he tries to do, right? All the good that he goes out of his way to try to do, even when, as you mentioned earlier, right? Like even when you have like every reason to just stop, and the world is beating you down, like he keeps finding something inside himself to motivate him to keep going and to keep trying to do good, and that's I think very powerful. I think it's a lesson we all could use.
yeah. I think it's well said. Yeah, I think Billy's probably as much as I like John Grady Cole. I think Billy is a more rounded character, or at
Yeah.
least more sympathetic. Not that John Grady Cole wasn't. I just think Billy, because of his vulnerability and he's so well intentioned and caring. I think John has more of a kind of a he lets things go a little bit. I don't know if that's
Yeah.
he seems a little bit more. He can kind of roll through things a little bit easier than Billy. I think that's kind of his relatability. I think is what sets him apart from John.
I agree with that
Yeah.
100%. Yeah.
But yeah, I think just kind of what you mentioned is just his journey and the his character arc, all the trials and strife and death, and he just finds a way to keep going. But he doesn't lose his goodwill. Like he doesn't lose that part of himself. And it does. I think you can argue at the end. While he initially shoos the dog away, he comes to realize it and he tries to look for
Right.
it. He can't find it. I think that's kind of the most heartbreaking part of it is that he realizes what he did and he tries to find it
Yeah.
to make amends, and that's this book made me tear up a few times. I mean, there's
Oh yeah.
yeah, it's
Oh yeah.
pretty good stuff. Yeah, it doesn't happen very often.
Well said.
Yeah,
I agree 100%. Co-signed.
yeah. But yeah, I'm sure we can go on for. I mean, if we really wanted to dive deep, I'm sure we can go for
Oh, there's
hours on
more. There's
certain
always
topics.
more.
Yeah,
Yeah, with McCarthy. Oh yeah.
maybe we can talk to Jenny about joining us to talk horses. I don't know if she's read this trilogy.
I would genuinely be curious to hear her thoughts on, just like in general, knowing how much she knows about horses, like how they're written, how Cormac McCarthy writes them, but also just, what writers do them well, what writers, I'm sure there are many, probably myself included, that don't. She did mention, I remember in one of the chats I was lucky enough to have with her, that like one of the most common things is just like having horses, like riding horses really hard and not realizing that like that'll just kill them, like they will just die. They'll ride like full speed for like days, and it's like that doesn't happen. You can't do that. they
Yeah,
they, they are animals. They are not, all powerful immortal, mounts. But
yeah.
fantasy loves its like dramatic horse running montages.
Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah, we'll have to talk to her about that and see if she's read the trilogy. I can send her my copies too. Just hasn't read it yet. But cool. Well, until
Cool
next
stuff.
time, where can
Till
people
next
find
time.
you and Truth of Grounds?
I like to say generally, if you really want to talk to me, go join the forum because it's a nice community, good space, and I am probably here more often than I'm on most social media. But otherwise, you can look me up, Carl D. Albert, on several social platforms. And yeah, Truth of Crown's available basically wherever online you want to buy books from. I think most people go to Amazon. Unfortunately,
Yeah.
they still have such an iron, grip on the indie ecosystem, and even traditional pub. But that's me. Come join the Patreon forum. We have a good time.
Yeah, and Carl's link is down below in the description. And if you enjoy tragedy, death, uh, read Truth of Crowns because it has all of that in spades. So go check it out.
That is true.
Yeah.
That is true.
Yeah. Talk about heartbreak. This is another one. Yeah, so cool. Yeah, thanks everyone for listening, and I'm sure we'll get to Cities of the Plain here at some point. But until then, we'll talk to everyone very soon.